I'm Leslie. I am your host of the recovery scene. And why is it so easy to let everybody else tell their stories until it comes to me? But I thought, you should probably know who I am if I expect you to be listening or watching, depending on if you're listening to the podcast or watching the YouTube channel. Anyway, ever since I was young, ever since I was little, I knew I was different. I just knew that I was, because even though I had friends and I was never picked on, like, I don't have a good childhood. Well, let me rephrase. I don't have a bad childhood story. I have nothing juicy to tell you guys whatsoever. I'm really sorry. The best thing I can come up with is one time I said to my parents, who were both from Scotland, both old school British. Like, my father was 3 generations up from me. He was born in 1928. My mother was 2. She was born in 1940. And mom is still alive. Dad passed in 2011. And I remember saying, but mom, they do it like this in America. And she said, I know, but you're being raised British. How am I supposed to reconcile that, especially like as a kid, right? And we would kind of go live in Scotland in the summers because our whole family was still there. And then when school would start, I would come back. And then the years that we didn't go, they would come here. So I had a very, very British influence growing up, and didn't really know what to do with that. Like, I didn't even know macaroni and hot dogs was a thing until later. Anyway, not the point. So also, I am autistic. I am on the autism spectrum. And it really started to manifest itself in middle school and high school. I just knew I was different. And again, I had friends. I was never picked on. Not really. I mean, not any more than any other kid was picked on in school. I was never bullied, if you know what I mean. I had friends. I had good friends. But I would say things that would just make people look at me weird. And I would act in ways that would be just off. There's no other way I can explain it except for that. It would just be off. In middle school and high school, it started for some reason getting real important to me to be popular. I have no idea why. I think it might just be an autism thing that I decided popularity was, important, and I obsessed on it. I got good grades. I didn't drop out. I didn't even start drinking until later. In the addiction world, I was a late bloomer. And I was never invited to parties, which, looking back, is probably a good thing. But because I was never that cool, like, I had my friends and whatever, but I never had a personality either. I had a personality, but it wasn't mine. I kind of liked what my friends liked, or whoever I was hanging around liked. And, I would find one person. I would have a person, a friend, and I would just stick to that one person. I would have other friends, but there was that one in particular that I would just kind of latch onto. And these were just some of the weirdness. Like I said, nobody disliked me. Nobody made my life difficult except me, And then I went to college, and I started dating a popular guy. This is still what was important to me. First, I was still fixated. I was still obsessed with popularity, and he was really good looking and really funny, and everybody knew who he was. And of course, I joined a sorority, and he was in a fraternity, and I discovered pot. First time I smoked it, nothing happened. The second time, all I remember is watching the movie Dangerous Liaisons, remembering Nicole Kidman had bad hair, and she was like right here in the camera the whole time, even though she wasn't. That's just kind of how it hit me. But the point is, I'm sure you're all, totally noticing those quirks. Anyway, the point is, it made me feel fine. I didn't feel weird. I'd always had anxiety. By the way, I had always had anxiety. Everything made me anxious. Deciding between toys as a little kid would make me start to cry and flip out. You know, it was really hard. And I always had this really mild depression. Now, it turns out that a lot of this stuff presents itself. Autistic people get diagnosed as bipolar, borderline personality, anxiety, depressive, you're anxious, depressive, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it turns out we just autistic. Like, yeah. So I finally didn't feel any of these things. I didn't feel weird. I could talk to people. Oh God. And then I started drinking. That was it. Like, I was so fun and I could talk to anybody and I was the life of the party. Everybody wanted to be around me, except suddenly I knew what it was like to be popular. I always thought that all of the girls in my school, let's say high school, who were popular had it so easy and it was so awesome and whatever. And little did I know that they were probably facing their own demons, their own problems, that their life was not just, you know, cake. And all this time, that's what I thought. And suddenly, especially other girls, other young ladies were so nasty, and kind of made it their mission to hurt me. But here's the thing. As long as I had alcohol, they couldn't. They could not hurt me. Now, that was the first college I went to. I changed my major to sign language interpreting. And this college, Wayne State University in Detroit, did not have it, obviously. So I ended up moving to Flint. Actually, I lived in Davison, which is right outside Flint. Met some of the greatest people I have ever met in my life while I was there. But that is where I was introduced to drugs, like drugs. I mean, sorry, the addiction world, yes, pot is a drug, 100%, absolutely. But I'm talking about acid and Molly and, you know, mushrooms and everything else. And I loved it. I loved every second of it, because as long as myself and my friends were rolling or tripping or whatever, life was cool. I don't know how to this day that I graduated, but I did. And I really think it's because I found something that I was just naturally good at. I was a very skilled signer. I've since retired from it. Obviously, I want to work with addicts and do my podcast, et cetera, et cetera. But the interpreting world, it loved me. It loved me for a long time. And I'm telling you, if it was any other profession, I'd have been kicked out on my ass a long time ago. I was a functioning alcoholic and drug addict. I mostly made it to work. Mostly. I had, okay, the corporate world, the regular business world, or, you know, whatever. You go to work or you don't, you're fired, right? The interpreting world is very, 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 very small. We're close-knit. We know each other. And it was like working for a family, especially my first job. It was like working for a family business. And instead of just outright firing me, which this woman should have done 100 times, by the way, she stuck with me. And she stayed with me. And she put up with me. And she made me feel like I was worth something. I'm not going to say her name just for privacy reasons, but she probably saved me more times than anybody else, because she would call me and make me go to work. Instead of staying home and getting high or drinking or whatever, she would call me and she would tell me. She threatened to fire me so many times. She fired me once for 10 minutes. And this sounds terrible because in the addiction world, it's like, okay, if you don't have any real consequences, nothing's going to change. You're going to do the same thing you're doing. And this is absolutely true. But on the other hand, she gave me a sense of purpose. She got me out of the house. She just made me somehow evolve, even if it was just a little bit. I ended up moving to South Carolina. Oh wait, I skipped a huge part. Oh my God. Okay. So at one point I was introduced, I moved from Flint back to Warren, which is outside of Detroit. And I was introduced by a friend. I was actually married at this time. So I had gotten married, right? We were married. I cannot say anything bad about my ex-husband because none of this was his fault. This was all me. We were married for 8 blissful months before I decided that I would rather be with this drug addict thug. Awesome. And so I decided to be with this person, and they introduced me to crack and heroin. And that's when things got really, really bad. It was abusive. I would go into work with great big bruises on my head and on my face. Now, keep in mind, the bruises on my head, I'm Scottish, and anybody watching this who is Scottish or from Scotland will understand. To defend myself, I immediately went to the head, but oh yeah. Anyway, so I always had bruises here from trying to defend myself. And somehow I was still working through all this, y'all. I've never lost a job because of drugs or alcohol. I lost a job because of postpartum depression. They fired me. But we won't go there. We're talking about drugs and alcohol. So crack and heroin. And one day I had just had enough. I had had enough of the abuse. I'd had enough of the drugs. I just had enough of everything. And I called my parents and I asked them to come get me. Now, I lived in a disgusting rental. Disgusting. I mean, it was gross. It was so gross. The floor was always damp. For no fault of my own, it was just gross. It was disgusting. The person I was dating happened to be deaf because I worked with the deaf and hard of hearing. I knew a lot of deaf people. I dated deaf people, you know, and they were asleep on the couch. And my parents came and they helped me when I say quietly, what I mean is we tiptoed across the floor because vibrations can, you know, wake people up. And we got all my stuff together. Guys, look at me. I was 105 pounds because we had run out of money and we were running out of food. So I gave all of the ham. We had sliced ham. I gave it all to the cat and I lived on canned peas for a week. I was greasy. I was disgusting. I hadn't showered. And I remember my father, God rest his soul, I walked out of that house after we got everything into the car. And I remember looking at my father and saying, Daddy, I just want to eat. And he put his hands on my shoulders and he said in his soft Scottish accent, "You're in good hands now." And the first thing they did was took my greasy behind to one of our favorite restaurants. And I ate and I ate and I ate. From there, we did what I like to call Scottish rehab. My parents had a lovely house, and the downstairs was the family room, a bathroom, and a bedroom. So they put me in this bedroom. Now, when you are coming off of heroin, you are going to go through a week of hell, at least. The withdrawals do not peak for 72 hours. So I was throwing up. I had explosive diarrhea that got all over me and the floor because I couldn't make it from here to the bathroom. My mother stayed with me the entire time in that bedroom downstairs to keep an eye on me. And I did not sleep for about 5 days. It was really hard. You know how long 24 hours is? Even after I went through the withdrawals, the insomnia was some of the hardest withdrawal I went through because 24 hours is a long time. I watched so many infomercials. And my therapist, Fran Brown, who was freaking amazing, cried when she found out. And she said, do we want any kind of medical help for this? You know, do you want to go to rehab, like actual rehab? Because I had a therapy session during my withdrawals and my mom's like, you're going. So I'm throwing up into a paper bag as we're going. And I actually said, no. I want to feel every ache, every twitch, every pang of nausea, because I never, ever want to forget what this feels like. And I never went back to drugs. But we were still an alcoholic because all we did was replace drugs with alcohol. And still worked, got into a new relationship, got married, moved to South Carolina. And my alcoholism was bad. Like to say I was a binge drinker, yeah, every day. I drank from morning till night. I drank before work, I drank after work, I drank in the evening. It was awful. It was awful. I would drink in the morning to keep myself from being sick for the rest of the day. And I would always say to my husband, why are you here? Why are you still here? And what he tells me now is I could see the person that was inside you. I could see the person you were meant to be and that you wanted to be. And so I was willing to wait until she showed up. So I found out, we went through fertility treatments, and I found out that I was pregnant with our oldest daughter. And what was so funny is I was a hardcore drinker. And the moment I found out I was pregnant, I quit. Hurting me is one thing. Hurting my children is a whole other ballgame. And I quit. And I quit until she was about a month old, and I started again. And I was a hardcore alcoholic. Somehow still with a job. Guys, that's a miracle. I'll never understand that. Never in my life will I understand that. Then I found out I was pregnant with the triplets. Quit. I know, right? Like, I cannot quit on my own, but if I have the right motivation, I can quit. Well, I wasn't about to hurt them either. Had the triplets, had a C-section, and of course got narcotics. So before they were a month old, not only was I back to drinking, I was back to crack. I found out where I could get it here. When my oldest was about 2 and the triplets were, 9 months old, they're like 14 months apart. My sponsor at the time said something that I will never forget. And it was my sign, like, that was it. He picked up on the fact that I was able to quit when I was pregnant with my oldest. I was able to quit like it was nothing when I was pregnant with the triplets. And he picked up on the fact that my children, they are my unicorns. They are the ones that magically help me heal, when nobody else can. Because the mother instinct in me is so strong. Now, don't misunderstand me. You cannot get clean for anyone else but yourself, right? And he knew that that's where this was coming from. that I had to be healthy to make sure they were healthy when they were born, right? So if I wanted to watch them grow up, if I loved them so much that I wanted to be there and I wanted to be with my husband during all these milestones, etc., I was going to have to take care of myself or I was going to miss it all. And my sponsor, being the intelligent, brilliant man he is, said this to me. So if you're in the bathroom smoking crack and you OD and die right there in the bathroom, who's the first one up in your house? And I said, that's Evora. It's my oldest. She was 2 at the time. Who's going to find your body? And I put it all together. And I never touched another drug. Still drank because in my head, you know, alcohol's a drug. If you don't think alcohol's a drug, sorry, it's a drug. I wasn't quite as bad, but I still drank. And on that final relapse, you don't have to be a believer to listen to my podcast or to watch my channel. There is no judgment here. Some of the people that I interview are Christians, are believers, have some kind of religion. Others don't. That's fine. Never think that you're going to be judged here. Okay? I am. And I go to church. And I have a amazing church family. And the last time I relapsed, that next week when I went to church, my spiritual father and mentor, Pastor Ray Popham, called my friends over. And he said, you are suspended from working in children's church, from volunteering anywhere, from interpreting or anything. You are going to be in this room when I am preaching to get the word. You are going to call or text these friends every single day. And if you don't, they're going to text your husband to find out where you are and what's going on. And we started doing that. And now I'm going on 6 years clean. 6 years in February. That was it. So that's my story. We all have different stories. All of our stories are impactful. All of our stories are meaningful and important. And if you have a story that you want to tell, I want to hear from you. So leave a comment, or you can send me an email at thecleancrew01@gmail.com. You can find me as Mama, M-A-M-A-K, Mama K, 14. No, Mama K, I can never remember my own screen name. Mama K, 2_14, because it's February is my clean date. 14, which is funny, is wrong. It's actually 2015, but whatever. So it's Mama K 2_14, or I'm at Leslie Ann Klepek here. I'm at Leslie Ann Klepek on Facebook. I'm at Leslie Ann Klepek on Instagram. And that's all for me. So I will see you guys again. This is what, episode 4.5, since I'm kind of interjecting myself. Love you guys.